Hey everyone, it's Alexandra here today with another astrology video. We're going to be talking about cusps. So cusps are a very controversial topic in astrology amongst the community. Half the people believe that cusps are real, half of them don't. And today I'm going to tell you my beliefs about the cusps. So first of all, what is a cusp? So a cusp is basically two energies between different zodiac signs. So let's say because the summer solstice is coming up, somebody's born on June 22nd. They are cusping the sign of Gemini and the sign of Cancer. So it's like if you had two different zodiac signs make up your identity. So this would just be for your sun placement, okay? Now, I've heard things in the astrology community, read my fair share over the past 10 years or watched videos, whatever, of people saying cusps only exist for your sun sign and not for other planets. So, for example, if you had Venus at 2 degrees of Aries, and that would technically be a cusp because Pisces is just a few degrees away. There's an argument that that doesn't actually count because it only matters with the sun and it doesn't count for every single planet. Now, I'm not really sure why that's a rule, and to be honest with you, that's exactly why I'm going to argue with it today. So I'm a big believer in cusps for every single planet, and this is the reason why. I feel like in astrology, we have, a circular birth chart, especially for Western astrology, we use the circle. And this shows you that everybody and everything is connected. I've already made a video about this in my synastry or aspect video. Go ahead and look at that because I will be talking about aspects today and I'm not explaining what they are. So go ahead and inform yourself on what those are. I'll link the video somewhere so you can figure out what that means and come back and now know what I'm talking about. So there's this idea in my beliefs and in the way that I view astrology and the way that I teach it is that everybody is equal with each other, okay? And so if everybody is equal with each other, we're supposed to be able to relate to one another because everybody has a birth chart, everybody has that circle. So when it comes to cusps, can you be one thing and another thing? Yes. The same way in your ethnicity, you can be half this and half that. But does that make you less of yourself? No. It's almost like if somebody was half white and half black and they're like, pick one. You can only be one. So then they tell you, no, that means you're black, or no, that means you're white, or whatever. But it's the same thing with cusps, and that's why a lot of people say that astrology is just space racism. And I'm not buying into that. I have a belief that everybody is equal, and that will show in my beliefs in astrology. This is how it makes sense to me. Let's say you are born within the next week or so, and you have your birthday on the summer solstice. So like I said, you would have Gemini and Cancer energy for your sun sign because somebody born the day before you was a Gemini, but someone born the day after you is a Cancer. So you're gonna sit there and tell me, this is my argument against astrologers who don't believe in cusps. You're gonna sit there and tell me that the person born the day before me is nothing like me because I'm just a Cancer. I'm not a Gemini at all. You're gonna sit there and tell me that when they were born just the day before me, yet you're like a Leo or something. I'm just picking on Leos, don't hate me. Like August 1st or something. And so naturally 2nd and July 31st, they make sense day before and after. Oh, of course we're alike, we're similar. Well, if you've ever said you're similar to somebody else because of that, then you have to make the same argument even on the cusps because your argument otherwise is inconsistent and invalid. It can't be true for just you because you're in the middle of a sign and it's easier for you. And then it's not easy for the rest of them. Like, that's stupid. I would just interpret that they have a similar personality. You're going to be similar to the person born on the day before you. And you're going to be similar to the person on the day after you. This is why cusps are very real. If you take a physical circle, okay, and you look at a point in the circle and you're right here, but someone born the day before you is just right there, to see how much my finger moves, like barely a centimeter. Yeah. And you're gonna tell me you guys are completely different. No, it's not, because think about this. Someone on the other side of the circle who's right here is very different because you're on two completely different sides of the circle. So on a visual level, how does that even make sense? That's my argument against all y'all that don't believe in cusps. As for the planets, it's the same argument for me with the planets. Scholars are believing in the 5-degree rule, like if a planet is close enough to a house, it just gets interpreted in the next house. I think that's a good rule for like rectification, but in general, if you know your exact birth time and that Venus placement is in between the 7th and the 8th house, or it's really close to the 8th house, but it's still technically in the 7th, just read it as both 7th and 8th house. Don't just like stick it out to one thing. It's like technically it's in the 7th house, but read it for what it is. Why are we making stuff up like 5-degree rule? Who made that rule? I don't like it. Let's rebel against it because it's stupid. You gotta think differently. Are you just doing things because it's been that way? Then I don't think that's a good enough reason to keep interpreting things that way. We need to question it. The other thing about the 5-degree rule as well, how are you going to believe in a 5-degree rule yet you don't believe in cusps? That is contradicting. Even your arguments are inconsistent. The other thing about cusps is that it does affect compatibility differently. So for all y'all who are just giving quick fixes for compatibility, that's cool, whatever. We're all guilty of it. We do it all the time. You're an Aries, I'm a Leo. But you know, we're compatible. We're both fire signs, right? Except for the fact that that might not be true, because that's a very basic way to do compatibility, and it works sometimes, but not all the time. So now I'm going to challenge you guys to go deeper with compatibility and think about the aspects. So if you don't know what aspects are and you don't know what the fuck that means, here's a little link, here's a little video. Let's say somebody is on the Aries cusp, okay? So let's say they were born March 22nd or something like that, okay? So they're a cusper of Pisces and Aries, but they're an Aries, okay? And then let's meet a Leo on the cusp of Virgo, right? So we got somebody who's born August 20th. Okay, so we have somebody March 22nd, and now we have somebody August 20th. Okay, so the first sign of this cusp for the Aries one is Pisces. The first sign of this cusp for Leo is Leo. Leo comes before Virgo, right? And Pisces comes before Aries. So that's not matched. That's not matched. We're talking about Pisces, Leo. Then we're talking about Aries, Virgo, which makes more of like a quincunx type of aspect. You know what I'm saying? So that's actually not really aspected well at all, because it's a little awkward. It's like, oh, I'm actually coming from the water fire cusp, and you're coming from the fire earth cusp. You're matching the fire part with the water, and you're matching the fire with the earth, not the other way around, because you have to look at what comes first and what comes second to match what comes first with what comes first and what comes second, what comes second. If you know elemental compatibility, you know water and fire is not compatible because water puts out a fire. And we know that if we're looking at fire and earth, creates a volcano. That's explosive. That's crazy. Let's do one where it's like you think it's a trine, but it's actually a square. Oh, so let's move that cusp to Aries and Taurus, Cancer, Leo. That will make a square because it's tighter. Okay, the other one was quincunx, but this is a square. Okay, so you're like, Aries and Leo, you know, they're trine, right? Or they're elementally compatible because they're both fire signs. But actually, this person was born April 18th. And then the Leo person was born July 24th. I don't know, that's my dog's birthday, so I'll just throw that out there. Anyway, so we're compatible, we're both fire signs. Actually, no, you're not compatible. Because if we look at your charts, we'll see that your suns actually make a square aspect to each other, okay? So What a square aspect is, you already know. You already know that's friction. You already know that's bad. Not necessarily bad, but just it's like you're gonna butt heads egotistically with that person. And like butting heads with someone in a fire sign, that's fighting fire with fire. That's when it's bad, okay? So sometimes fire with fire could be a good thing, but sometimes not. And it's like the same element can be good or it can be bad, but it depends on the aspect. So we want to look at the aspect. This is why it's better to go deeper, and rather than just give that quick fix compatibility check. Actually, maybe not though. Look at the chart. Analyze it, go deeper, go beyond what everybody else is teaching you on TikTok and the mundane shit, okay? Go deeper, challenge things, look at them from a microscope and see, actually, mathematically speaking, we are not compatible. We make a 90-degree angle to both of our suns. So sometimes you can square another sign that's in the same element as you. And this is true for any planet, not just your sun sign. So we can't just look at elemental compatibility as the end all be all, because it's not. Aspects exist. Now, another thing I want you guys to look at is the orb, right? Because orbs are a real thing. Now, a square is a 90-degree angle, etc., right? We learned that. So if you look at that in a chart, there's a bit of geometry. How can I tell if it's square or not? Well, it doesn't have to be exactly 90 degrees, but it can have a bit of an orb. So an orb is the space after or before this specific degree, in this case 90, that still allows the aspect to occur. So just because it's not exactly 90 degrees, let's say it's like 85 degrees, or let's say it's 95 degrees, because it can go north or south, it can go either way. So that is the orb. It gives it that buffer space to still exist as an aspect. Okay, so an exact aspect would be exactly 90 degrees. That's called an exact square in this case. But if there's a little bit of wiggle room, that's called the orb. So you want to look at the orbs. You're like, how do I know if it's a square? Elementally, you can't figure it out because it doesn't account for the math. So I would question everything and go deeper, you guys, okay? We know the basics. Let's go deeper than the basics. That's pretty much like my main argument with that. And it can go the other way too. You might actually think you're incompatible with someone because, I don't know, let's do a random sign. Like Taurus and Aquarius, for example. Those signs naturally are like no-go because they're earth and air and they're fixed signs, so they naturally have ego clash. But actually, with the right edge of the cusps, they might actually trine. Somebody was born at the end of Taurus and they were born like May 19th. Let's say they're born January 23rd, that's an Aquarius. Okay, so January 23rd with May 19th, Aquarius and Taurus, that's awful. Actually, you're compatible. Sorry, you're compatible with that person. Whether you like it or not, I don't give a fuck. It's just the aspect makes it possible for signs that are technically not compatible with you actually to be compatible with you. So you always want to look deeper. Now, some astrologers say, I don't care, I just look at the element. Well, if you don't care and you just look at the element, that's because you're too lazy to go deeper. We need to not be lazy and take everything into consideration. I've met people who have said, oh, we're Gemini and Virgo. I've heard that we're actually really compatible. It can be true, but immediately, elementally, as an astrologer, you realize that's not true. You're immediately like, that's not. But I've actually heard a Gemini and Virgo have this conversation. And then I thought about their birthdays. I'm like, you know what? They're actually compatible because the aspect allows them to trine. So you need to look more specifically, you guys, because sometimes you'll be like, how can two of the same element be compatible? You're right. Sometimes they're not. How does it make sense that fire is compatible with fire? I'm sure a lot of people ask that question. There's a reason for that. Because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You have to look at the aspect to really be able to tell. My next astrology video, I will start doing birth chart readings of your faves celebrities, influencers, whatever, whoever you want me to do, I'll do. So write in the comments who you would like me to do a birth chart for so that you guys can start to see how I read charts with these mentalities, with these beliefs in place. And if you like that style, you can get a reading from me I'm starting to sell readings now. Right now they're $10 with a little special phase, so I'll link all the information in the description if you would like reading from me. Anyway, have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe.